The Student Freedom Agreement, Entrance Counseling. In this video, we'll break down key concepts to help you understand what the Student Freedom Agreement is, how it works, and how Student Freedom Initiative sets your monthly payments. We'll also cover when payments start and end, and learn about the termination amount. A Student Freedom Agreement is a higher education financing option in which students receive funding for their education and agree to make monthly payments in the future based on what they earn after leaving college. Let's check out an overview of how a Student Freedom Agreement works. To be eligible to receive funding via the Student Freedom Agreement, your school must be a participant in the Student Freedom Initiative program. Prior to processing your application for a Student Freedom Agreement, your financial aid office will also need to confirm the following. You have completed a FAFSA or acceptable alternative state aid application and that your school has accepted and approved it. You have a valid social security number and are not an international student or foreign exchange student authorized to enter the United States on a non-immigrant visa. You are majority age or older, which is 18 years or older in most states. You are enrolled full-time for the coming academic term unless full-time enrollment is not required in your final term of study to obtain your bachelor's degree. You are meeting satisfactory academic progress as defined by your institution. And you are a rising junior or senior based on credit hours working towards a degree in one of the approved STEM bachelor's degrees at your school. After graduating or leaving college, students that receive a Student Freedom Agreement will pay a fixed percentage of their annual income. Your payments are recycled back into the Student Freedom Initiative program to help fund future students' higher education. With the Student Freedom Agreement, there isn't a set monthly payment that you need to make. Instead, you agree to pay a fixed percentage of your income, so your payments go up and down as your income changes over time. Under a Student Freedom Agreement, you can make payments for up to 20 years. But students will finish making payments early if their payments have reduced the termination amount to zero. Student Freedom Agreement payments are based on the amount of funding you receive while in college and your pre-tax income after college. Students can receive up to $20,000 per year or $40,000 total in Student Freedom Agreement funds. A key term you'll want to know is payment percentage. This refers to the percentage of your income you'll owe, which is determined by how much funding you receive. Specifically, you'll owe 2.5% of your yearly income for every $10,000 you receive. For example, if you receive $5,000 in funding, you'll owe 1.25% of your income. If you receive $20,000, you'll owe 5% of your income. If you receive the maximum of $20,000 in both your junior and senior year for a total of $40,000, you'll owe 10% of your income. Another key term is payment threshold. Because the amount you'll owe is a percentage of your income, the actual dollar amount you pay each month depends on what your income is for that year. Say you receive $10,000 in funding from a Student Freedom Agreement. If you make a salary of $90,000 per year, which comes out to about $7,500 each month, you'll pay $188 per month, which is 2.5% of your income. If you make $50,000 per year, or about $4,167 each month, you'll pay $104 per month, which is also 2.5% of your income. This is the case at all income levels, except if you make less than the yearly threshold amount. This threshold amount is based on the federal poverty level and fluctuates from year to year. If you make less than the yearly threshold amount, you won't owe anything for that year. In 2021, the threshold amount is $28,980. So for example, if you make $28,900 in a year, or about $2,408 each month, you won't pay anything for that year. So how is your income calculated? Every year, you'll be asked to tell Student Freedom Initiative how much income you expect to make. If your taxes show that you made more or less than you expected, Student Freedom Initiative will calculate how much you need to pay the following year to make up the difference. Students should be aware that when you sign a Student Freedom Agreement, you agree to share with Student Freedom Initiative the following: changes to your contact information, your estimated income each year, your tax return transcripts from the IRS, and other information they may request to verify contact information or income. To ensure that your monthly payment obligation is based on your actual income, you'll need to keep Student Freedom Initiative updated on changes to your income using the Student Portal. Let's talk about when payments start. Your payment term is the time during which you're obligated to make income contingent payments. The payment term will start after one of two things happens, whichever comes first. 1. You graduate from college. Your payment term will begin on the January 1st after graduation. Or 2. You don't graduate, but a certain amount of time has passed since you first received funds through a Student Freedom Agreement. For example, if you first received funds as a senior but didn't graduate, you'll start payments on the January 1st, 3 years from when you received those funds. You might be wondering, what if I don't have a job when my payment obligation starts? Or what if I go on to a graduate or professional degree right after I graduate? If your income is ever less than the threshold amount, you have no payment obligation for that period. Any stipends received in graduate school do not count as income. Now let's talk about when payments end. Once the payment period starts, you'll make income contingent payments every month until one of two things happens, whichever comes first. The first is that 20 years pass since your payment term started. This includes any years that your payment obligation is $0. After 20 years pass, you'll incur no new payment obligation. If at any time after the 20th year you owe any outstanding balances, then you will continue to make regular monthly payments after the payment years. Outstanding balances can occur if you reported less income than you earned and didn't pay off that difference in the following years, or if you take deferrals in the 20th year. The second way the payment period ends is if your payments reduce the termination amount to 0. When this occurs, your agreement has reached early termination. So what do we mean when we say the termination amount? Put simply, the termination amount is the dollar amount that you can pay at any given time if you want to have no further payment obligation. Student Freedom Initiative uses the termination amount to impose a limit on the total payments you will make under a Student Freedom Agreement. Initially, the termination amount starts at the funding amount received and grows at a certain rate each year. As you make payments, the termination amount is reduced by the amount of your payments. At the same time, it grows at the growth rate specified in your agreement and is fixed for the life of the contract. For the 2021-2022 academic year, the growth rate was set at 4.3%. The total amount of money you could possibly pay under the Student Freedom Agreement is capped in two ways. First, you will never pay more than your actual funding amount multiplied by 1.6. For example, if you receive $10,000 in funding from an SFA, you will never pay more than $16,000 to complete your obligation. Second, the cost of your agreement expressed as an annual rate or APR, will never exceed the yearly annual growth rate. For example, if the growth rate is 4.3%, your APR will never exceed 4.3%. You can exit the agreement, meaning that your payment term ends either after 20 years or by paying the termination amount. Let's take a look at a few case scenarios. This example describes a student who received a student freedom agreement in 2021 and makes a steady, moderately high income after college. Amanda received $10,000 from a student freedom agreement, so she owes 2.5% of her income each year. Amanda has a steady annual income of $50,000. On top of her other loans, she makes payments of $104 each month to Student Freedom Initiative, or about $1,250 each year. At this rate, after about 10.5 years, she has made payments totaling $12,991 and has reduced her termination amount to $0. She has now completed her payment obligation. Let's take a look at an example of a student who received a student freedom agreement in 2021, enrolls in a graduate or professional degree program, and goes on to make a high income. In this example, Michelle received $10,000 too, so she also owes 2.5% of her yearly income. Right after graduating with her bachelor's degree, Michelle enrolls in medical school. This means that for the 4 years Michelle is in med school and is not making any income, she is earning less than the threshold amount and does not have to make any payments to Student Freedom Initiative. Stipends provided in graduate school do not count as income under a Student Freedom Agreement. Upon graduation from med school, she has completed 4 years of her payment obligation. While in residency, Michelle earns $60,000 and so makes payments of $125 each month in addition to payments on other loans. After 3 years in residency, she earns a yearly income of about $110,000 as a doctor, so she begins making larger payments of $229 each month. In this situation, where she started out making nothing in grad school and quickly went from low to moderate to high income, Michelle went from making no payments to higher income contingent payments on her Student Freedom Agreement. In this case, it takes Michelle about 6.5 years of payments to reduce the termination amount to $0. In total, she ends up paying $14,569. Here's one last example. In this case, Jalen received a Student Freedom Agreement in 2021 and makes a relatively low and fluctuating income. He receives $10,000 and owes 2.5% of his income, just like Amanda and Michelle. Jalen gets a relatively low-paying job right out of college and makes $25,000 per year. Because this is below the threshold income level of close to $30,000 per year, he does not owe any money towards his Student Freedom Agreement during those years. After 2 years, Jalen gets a raise and starts making $34,000 per year, so he starts making payments on the Student Freedom Agreement. After 4 years, Jalen decides to leave the workforce and raise a family. Even though Jalen's household has an income above $30,000, Jalen's personal income is $0, so he does not owe any money on the Student Freedom Agreement. After 5 years, Jalen rejoins the workforce and makes between $40,000 and $49,000 a year. Throughout this time, Jalen does not miss any payments. He made payments any year that his annual income was over the threshold amount. In this scenario, Jalen makes 156 payments over the 20 payment years. In total, Jalen pays $13,354. So what will a Student Freedom Agreement look like for you? Every student's future financial situation is unique, and so their student freedom agreement will be unique too. Prior to deciding, you can use Student Freedom Initiative's cost calculator to see an estimate of how much you might pay based on how much funding you receive and how much you expect to earn after college. This is only an estimate, since the exact terms of the agreement adjust to what your income schedule ends up being in the future. A student freedom agreement might be a good option for you, or it might not be right for you. For more information on student freedom agreements, check out the Student Freedom Initiative website or talk to a financial aid counselor at your college or university.